Once upon a time in Venezuela, there was a farmer who, believe it or not, had never ever taken a train before. And today was the day when he was going to take the train for the very first time in his life. He was so excited. He was there, standing in the station, looking around him, looking at the people, their faces, thinking, all these people from different backgrounds, from different places, going to different places or to the same places, and all of us in this same space, a station. He was very excited. He then heard his announcement, the announcement for his train. And so he ran to the platform and he got onto the train and he sat by the window. And he looked out of the window and he saw the hustle and bustle of the station on the platform and waited and was extremely excited, looking at everything inside the train, the seats, how soft they were, how hard they were, how organized they were, looking at the baggage rack, looking at the little ashtray, the bin, and he marveled at humans' inventiveness and he waited for the train to depart. Soon, a man came and sat next to him. Now, this man had taken the train before. Not once, not twice, but many, many times. Too often, if you asked him. This man was a mathematician. This man was an intellectual. This man was bored even before the journey had begun. He sat down next to the farmer. He looked at him, nodded slightly, and sighed. And the farmer waited, and the train departed. The farmer looked out of the window as it left the station. He couldn't believe his eyes. The countryside was dancing before his eyes. He had never seen cows run so fast. Some of them were running backwards. He looked and he looked and he looked and he loved everything he saw. Everything was new. Everything was special. This movie, this film dancing before his eyes. It was unbelievable and he loved every minute of it. And next to him, the mathematician sighed ever so heavily and sighed and sighed and was bored out of his mind when suddenly he had an idea. The mathematician turned and tapped the farmer on his shoulder and he said to him, I don't know why you're so excited about this journey, but anyhow, to pass the time, I've had an idea. I thought you and I could play a game called the game of questions and answers. This is how it goes. I shall ask you a question, and if you don't know the answer, you will give me a bolivar, the Venezuelan currency. Then it'll be your turn. You ask me a question, and if I didn't know the answer to your question, then in that case, I would be the one to give you a bolivar. So what do you say? Shall we play? Now the farmer looked at the mathematician. The farmer was childlike. The farmer was excited. The farmer was no fool. And he said to the mathematician, thank you, but no thank you. If I play with you, all I'll manage to do is lose all my money. So no thank you. And he turned back to the window and he looked and he looked and he looked and he looked and he enjoyed every minute of the journey. In the meantime, the mathematician sat and sighed and sighed and sighed some more and thought, I am bored out of my mind, and if this continues, I shall die of boredom. And then he had another idea. He tapped the farmer on the shoulder and he said to him, listen, I've thought of new rules for the game to accommodate our differences in education and background. So this is how it would go, with the new rules. I shall ask you a question. If you don't know the answer, you give me a bolivar. Then you ask me a question. And if ever I didn't know the answer to your question, then I would give you 5,000 bolivars. What do you say? The farmer looked at him, thought about it, but not very long, and said, okay. And so they began the game. The mathematician was the first to go. He rubbed his hands and he said, what is an atom and in how many parts can you divide it? The farmer didn't even think about it. He reached into his pocket and he handed over 1 bolivar to the mathematician, who took it, happy and excited now, and thought, okay, let's see what kind of question he asks me. Your turn, he said to the farmer. The farmer looked out of the window, 30 seconds, turned to the mathematician and said, what goes up the mountain on 3 legs and comes down that very same mountain on 5 legs? This surprised the mathematician. He thought he'd be able to answer in a flash. He'd have to think about this. So he sat and he thought and he thought and he thought, while the farmer turned back to the window and looked and looked and looked. And the mathematician thought and divided and multiplied and added and compared and calculated and calculated and calculated the whole way until the train stopped, arriving at their destination. Both men got up. They went out onto the platform. The mathematician shook the farmer's hand and said, I congratulate you for such a difficult and complicated question, which I have not been able to answer. He took out 5,000 bolivars and he gave them to the farmer, who took them, folded them up and put them in his inside pocket and smiled. The farmer said, hang on though, please don't go before telling me what does go up a mountain on 3 legs and comes down that very same mountain on 5 legs. Please do tell me. The farmer didn't even think about it. He reached into his pocket, he took out a bolivar and he handed it over to the mathematician.